You are listening to the Hiking Radio Network, where we talk the walk with shows by hikers, about hikers, for everybody.
Mighty Blue on the Appalachian Trail, the ultimate midlife crisis. Join Steve and his guests every week as he staggers from Georgia to Maine.
Hi, everyone. Thanks again for coming back to Mighty Blue on the Appalachian Trail, the ultimate midlife crisis. I'm Ryan, or JR. This week's guest is someone you might recognize, Steve. Steve and I got to catch up this past weekend at Trail Days, which was great. I was thinking about it earlier. I don't think Steve and I have actually seen each other in person in over a year and a half, like many people haven't, given the pandemic. But it was nice to catch up and stop by the author's booth there at Trail Days. And that kind of leads us to our discussion today. We'll do a quick overview of some things at Trail Days, talk a little bit about Steve's books, more about what his books are about, upcoming books, where you can purchase his books, all that good stuff. And then we'll talk a little bit about some of his upcoming hikes. So I hope everyone enjoys the conversation. It definitely was great to catch up and shine a little bit of light on what Steve's been up to and how things are going for him. And without any further ado, we'll get over to the interview. All right, so we're on with Steve, of all people, this week. How you doing today, Steve?
I'm not too bad, Ryan, after driving 1,500 miles in a couple of days. Yeah, it's a long old drive, let me tell you.
Yeah, and without knowing if you're going to find gas, that makes it even more exciting, huh?
So I would use the word exciting. When you're driving up a mountain in North Carolina and you're not sure whether there's any gas either in your tank or in the pumps, it's quite nerve-wracking. But to be honest with you, I had no problem at all. So
there you go.
I got home okay.
Right on. Well, for today's conversation, we wanted to just kind of reflect a little bit on Trail Days this past weekend.
Yeah.
So I'd love to hear how that went from your point of view, being there as an author at the author's table. Is that right?
Yes, that's what I did. I went there for that purpose. And the last time I went, I've never been to the Trail Days when I've been hiking. I've only been to Trail Days twice now. Once when I just started the podcast. I started the podcast in 2016, and I was going to Trail Days to try to advertise the podcast. But this time I went in the author's tent. And it's funny, actually, when you've produced a book, you sometimes feel a little bit of a phony by having a book with your name on it. It's kind of a spooky thing to do. And, we met there, we spoke there. You originally came to interview people, but the two of us actually came to the same conclusion, didn't we? We just weren't feeling it, were we? We weren't feeling the fact that we should be interviewing people. I was there to do the authoring bit, and I could see in I don't know about your demeanour, but how you were. You just thought, well, I'm not too sure about whether I should do this. So I suppose I turned the question around to you, even though this is your interview of me. What do you feel of Fridays?
Well, I really enjoyed it. I mean, obviously things were a little bit different this year because if I remember correctly, they weren't sure if they were going to do it for a while and then they were going to adjust it for a while. So I think it was like many events that are slowly starting to happen again. It had some asterisks next to it. So it was the first time I'd actually got to go to Trail Days, and I enjoyed it a lot. It's really cool to, I think, just see a lot of it in person. Yes. You see photos or you hear things or you watch videos, but it just makes it feel more real. And I've been to Damascus several times, growing up in Virginia. It's such a cool town, but to see it with all of the liveliness to it is really exciting.
Did you feel, I don't know whether you felt the same way, but I know I felt this in 2017 as well, because I wasn't actually hiking. I felt like a bit of an outside, almost an interloper. I was a bit of an outsider of the event. You saw all these amazing thru hikers there. Just they all looked filthy. You can't remember being that filthy, and they were all just so full of life and vigor. And they were some of the clothes they wear at Trail Days. I would never do any of that, but it's pretty cool, though, isn't it?
Yeah, I know what you mean. Like, you can definitely spot who's hiking pretty quickly. And, people come in from wherever just to enjoy the music or food or see, craft tables and stuff. So there's a big mix. But I almost got the vibe that some of the people that you could tell were there that have never hiked, are not interested in hiking. They just wanted to just come to the festival. It was almost like looking at animals in a zoo. They were like staring at people like, what is going on?
Did you see the guy walking around with the panda face, by the way?
Yes.
he one of the writers in the author's table had a panda face there, and this young man came up to him right at the very beginning of the day on the Thursday morning and said, "Can I have that?" And he said, "Yeah, sure." So I walked around with the panda face all day long, which was pretty damn awesome. And I, for me, it was lovely for me to catch up with people. I didn't see many people, if any, actually, who I hiked with in 2014, but I met quite a few of the people I hiked with in 2019. In fact, I stayed at Lady Di's B&B. Lady Di was somebody who I hiked with for some time in 2019, and she was trying to put together, for that weekend, she invited people to her B&B who she'd hiked with in 2019. So it was a lovely, really lovely reunion, and something that she said has stuck with me. She said that, and in fact, I might have her on the show when I'm back doing the show. She said that, you read all this thing about hikers being entitled and being misbehaving and so on, and I'm sure some of them do. But she's had the B&B now only for a couple of weeks, and she says they're the thru hikers she's met are the least entitled people. They've all been polite, they've all been respectful, and they've followed the rules. So I rather like that, because all the crap, as my listeners know, or our listeners know, all the crap on Facebook is just that. It's just crap on Facebook.
Yeah. Is that in Damascus, like proper, or is it outside of Damascus?
Yes. No, okay. It's just literally, it was about a 10-minute walk away from where my tent was. So that worked really nicely for me as well.
Another question I was thinking, Steve, on your previous 2 hikes, you mentioned that you weren't at trail days while you were hiking. Were you just, the timing didn't make sense? You were too far ahead when they were happening, or how did that play out? Well,
first time, the thought of spending, 2 or 3 days drinking heavily, eating heavily, and possibly taking substances I could have done without. I've over the years, and I'm pretty clear about it in my books, I've had a kind of addictive nature, I guess. And I didn't really want to expose myself to it in 2014. I felt far more capable of handling that in 2019. But I just was too far ahead at that stage. And frankly, when you're going, perhaps at the pace I was going, losing 3 or 4 days just puts you back that much more. Mm-hmm. So I think I decided I would just carry on. I was with Trigger then, he and I carried on to the end, and it made sense for me. So coming to it from a non-thru hiker standpoint, as I did this year in 2017, I enjoyed that part of it. And I'm really happy that I did it that way.
Yeah. Well, you mentioned your book there for a second. So I got to overhear some of these conversations, but I'd love to hear more.
Yes, you did, didn't you?
Yeah.
You did. You were rolling your eyes a few times as well, weren't you?
No. I would love to hear more just about what those conversations were like, because you were pretty packed most of, at least Saturday. There was even a moment I was like, do you want to get you food or something? Because you just were talking with people the whole day. So what were those conversations like about the book and your podcast?
Well, while I was there supposedly to sell the book, and I did pretty good. I sold 30 or 40 copies, which was fine, and I'm very happy with that. The feeling the warmth and, almost the love from fellow hikers, but most surprising to me was the love from the listeners. You saw it. I'm not saying I was embarrassed at all, but it was incredible to hear these people come up. And I'm not going to say her name, but you may remember this lady. I'm sure you will. She was so excited to see me, wasn't she? Yeah. And she said, "Can I have a hug?" And she leaned across the table and gave me a hug, which was great. We had loads of photos taken. And I think it was her friend who said, we were out on the Appalachian Trail the other day, and my friend here said, Mighty Blue was here. He walked here. That's kind of gratifying, frankly. You're having an impact on people, and I don't know whether you heard this bit, but it happened to me 3 or 4 times. That it may even have been 5 times. This year's thru hikers came up to me, and they said words like, "You're the reason I'm here. Your books or your podcast, mainly the podcast, actually, to be fair, your podcast is the reason I'm here, because your guests have made the Appalachian Trail, more accessible. And I never thought I could do something like this, but man, I'm doing it and I'm enjoying it. And that was quite something. I'll tell you that really meant a heck of a lot to me when they said that. When you think that you've shaken up somebody's life sufficiently that they've put down the rest of their life to take 6 months off to go and do something like that, that is having an impact. That is what this show has done to people, had an impact on people's lives. And I just thought that was marvelous.
It's so powerful. And that is a testament to not only the show, but also, each and every guest who has shared their stories and
absolutely
opened up. And, whether they realized it or not, they were impacting future hikers and future friends and family who are going to support hikers. I think that's just so wonderful.
Yeah. I did actually also, and I know that you and I were talking about future guests on the show for you, but I found several people came up and I, in meeting them, they wanted to tell me their story. Then I thought partway through the conversations of some of them, I thought, well, you make a great guest. So I've got a couple of contact details for some people, and you and I are going to talk about that and get some of them on the show, because one thing hikers like talking about is hiking. So that's, I think this is what one of the reasons the show has been quite successful is that, when I interview people and when you interview people, we're genuinely interested in what other hikers have got to say, because their experience, as we've all talked about before, their experience is different to what we experience on the trail. And so, I think those stories are always powerful. And somebody listening to, say, 60 of my show or our show, 60 of the shows, will get something out of 40 of them, or even just 10 of them, or just one of them, but something they'll hear will encourage them to do something. And I think that's an important part. And really, I haven't told you this, but when I drove away from Damascus, once I got some gas and once it was light, because I left bloody early on Sunday morning, I decided to put aside the idea of writing the novel I'm trying to write, and I'm actually going to write the other two books that I've already planned. I've already got covers for, one of which is obviously the second hike of the Appalachian Trail, but the other one is the hike of the Camino. So I feel that I want to complete a circle here somewhere, and I want to get those hiking books all together before I start concentrating on other things.
We'll chat a little more about the books in just a bit, but one more reflection I was thinking, you always said that folks were always eager to talk about hiking, and I know that's true, but it's so nice to see how quickly people are willing to open up and be vulnerable and almost talking like an old friend, someone you just met a few minutes ago. And I was kind of reflecting on that too. I think it's because everyone kind of has this common language around the trail, right? Like you can start a story by saying, Delaware Water Gap or at Springer, yes. Or like you can just start and it just like clicks and clicks. And then you both know exactly where that person's talking about, or exactly a certain detail. And I remember several times this complete stranger would walk up to the booth, start chatting with you. I would go make a lap and look at some, and I'd come back and we're still chatting and just in this almost like old friends, and I think that's a really powerful part of the trail, is it does give complete strangers sometimes just this common language to bond so quickly.
But it's a great equalizer though, isn't it? And my old line I used to say was, you turn up at a shelter at mile 874, and the person who's sitting in the shelter next to you, whether they're quarter of your age, in my case sometimes, or 4 years or 10 years or 20 years older than you, they've done the same thing you've done to get there in most cases, if they're through hiking. And so there's this commonality of interest, and I know listeners have heard this before, but it's an important thing to stress all the time, is that they want your success, they want your ability to finish, and almost as much as they want their own. That no one's against you. It's not a race, and it's just a case of encouraging people to do the best they can, to stay on the trail as long as they can, and just to enjoy the experience.
That's such a great point. When people come up, they don't ask what you do for a living, what you did for a living. They don't care, right? It's just they want to chat with you about your hiking experiences, and I think that's a really special thing.
But isn't part of that the strength of trail names as well?
Right.
You are someone different. I know that I'm home, I'm Steve, but on the trail, and nearly everybody who came up to me, if you recall, they weren't saying, Steve Adams, or, it was, Mighty Blue.
Yeah.
and this different bloke, I guess, or the same bloke, but it maybe seemed like a different bloke, answered the question. So I was Mighty Blue, you were JR, and I introduced you to quite a few people as well, didn't I?
Yeah.
And the reason I did it, because people said, I love your podcast, I've been listening. And just in case they said anything like, I don't like the new bloke, I always said, and this is Ryan, he's the one taking that. And to a man and a woman, they all said, you're doing a great job, didn't they?
Yeah, which is encouraging to hear in person for sure.
Yeah.
Well, we can chat a little bit about the books now. The reason I wanted to talk about the books is just, seeing at Trail Days, a lot of listeners coming up and saying, I didn't know you had a book, or I didn't know where to get it, or just some of the just simple information. And something that you had to remind me of was that in the early days of the show, you read your book at the end of each episode, right?
I did, yeah.
And so, I didn't remember that because I had missed some episodes at the beginning, and I think some other listeners may not have listened to them all the way through or whatever. So I would love to just do a quick overview of the 3 books, right? And yes, the titles, how they're kind of split up, and then how people can get them.
The first thing is that when I got back from the trail in 2014, I just sat down kind of almost sluggishly for about 3 months. I couldn't get my head in order. And when I got back, I was asked to do an event where I gave a speech about the trail and to raise money for the charity, the one that I'm involved with. And I wasn't ready to give it. It was only 10 days after I got home and my head was still scrambled. I don't know whether people can relate to that, but, if you've done something as visceral and as all-encompassing as hiking a trail, you're exhausted, and I don't think really you've got the chance to process what's just happened to you. I know a lot of people think this post-trail depression is just a figment of somebody's imagination, but if you're feeling pretty down after having such a high for 6 months, then it's real to the person suffering it, let me tell you. So I wasn't ready to do anything, and I always wanted to start writing. But eventually the new year came, and as with all New Years, I made some promises to myself that I didn't keep. But one of the things I did keep was to start writing. And I wrote and I wrote and I wrote. I couldn't stop bloody writing. And I got to, I think I did something like 250,000 words.
Wow.
And I had to cut out, when I eventually took them to an editor, I had to cut out about 80,000, maybe even 100,000 words. But that still made it too much for a single book. So I turned it into 2 books. By the way, one of my 1-star reviews on Amazon is somebody says, I don't know why I had to make it 2 books, which isn't a reason for a 1-star review, by the way. But as you can tell, I'm not bitter about that. But I'd always wanted to call it, and my blog was called My Appalachian Trial. And that was before I'd read Zach Davis's Appalachian Trials. But then I liked Zach's book so much that I thought, sod it, I'm going to keep it. It was My Appalachian Trial, and it was a trial. So I turned it into My Appalachian Trial 1 and My Appalachian Trial 2, 2 volumes of the same story. And I was looking for some creative taglines, and my son, for all his, I don't know how to put it, for all his consistencies and his inconsistencies, decided to riff on a couple of movie titles. My Appalachian Trial 1, he gave me, instead of 4 weddings and a funeral, he gave me 3 weddings and a sabbatical. 3 weddings, having been married and now divorced 3 times. And the sabbatical, well, I was taking a sabbatical from life, I guess, by hiking the trail. And the second one was he took the movie Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon and turned it into Creaking Geezer, which is self-evident, Hidden Flagon, and Hidden Flagon being because I drank or drank. And so, I reveal some of that stuff in the book. There's a lot of personal stuff. And, it's funny when you're writing a book, you start telling your stories and it goes in different directions because you probably don't want to tell everything about yourself, but I found myself unloading because I found myself unloading on the trail. You know, I was spending so much time in my head on the trail, and I didn't have headphones in for about 800 miles. And so eventually my thoughts were driving me crazy, you know, apologising to all my wives and girlfriends of the past, and perhaps regretting some of the drugs I'd taken and certainly some of the booze I'd drunk. But I was trying to, the trail gives you the opportunity, and it's either a misfortune or fortune, depending on your point of view, but it gives you the opportunity to reflect so much on your life. And you think to yourself, oh, I will have had the whole world sorted out by the end. And then you get to Maine, you think, oh, I haven't thought of anything really. but certainly, you know, my thoughts of my past came back, and some cases they help me, some cases they don't. But my philosophy in life has always been, frankly, wherever I am now, if I'm happy now, then everything that's happened in the past has led me to this place. So I'm okay with what's happened in the past. But that's why I allowed myself to perhaps unload a little bit too much personal stuff. And I tried to keep it, if I was going to talk about personal stuff, it was one chapter. And then I'd go on about the hike. And then if I wanted a bit more personal stuff, it was another chapter. So that worked out, you know, pretty well. So I got the books eventually after the editing and lots of re-edits when my editor said to me, you need to rewrite this in American English. What's that? I had no idea. Apparently I was using English. And so she made me rewrite it. So I had to rewrite the whole book, which was fine. Cut down lots of words, cut out lots of words, and ended up with 2 volumes, which were published in May 2016. Just to finish the circle, I was then understanding that a number of writers were writing kind of a free book as well to attract people to their book, their main books. And so in a 4-week period, I think it was, I wrote a 15,000 word book. And it actually came from a presentation I did once at the Appalachian Trail Club of Florida. And my title was Hiking the Appalachian Trail is Easy, especially if you've never hiked before. And to be fair, I did say, I know darn well it's not easy. But my point was, if you don't know certain stuff, then you're not really taken by surprise when it happens. You just learn on the way and get on with it. So I did that one. And one of the reasons for being at the show this last couple of days was that for the first time ever, that book is now available in print on Amazon as the other 2 are available on Amazon. The ebook of that shorter one is still available on my website, which is steveadamsauthor.com, and they can go on there on the homepage. They'll see a place to give their name and their email address, and they'll get a copy of the ebook. So that's still available for free on that website.
That's great. And, I was looking over the printed version of it, and I think it's just a great, intro, or if someone's in the early stages of planning their hike, but also for something that I've seen too is, if someone's about to take on a hike and their friends or family want to support them, it's a great kind of entry level. Here, check this out. This will give you some overview and how I know a little bit more about what I'm doing. So I think it's a great resource for that too.
Cool. Well, it's a pretty quick read, and it does cover, I think, food, accommodation, support, water, and just a number of different, and friends, and just a number of different things that people might want. You're right, that they might want to know before they head out into the wild, as it were.
Right. And so all 3 of them are on Amazon. Is that right? Yeah,
I'm pretty much, and I'm 2 thoughts about this. At the moment, they're all on Amazon. What I am doing, and I'm going to carry on what I was doing at Trail Days on Amazon. The printed version is $13.99 per volume for the first 2. The main story, Appalachian Trail 1 and My Appalachian Trail 2. But I was selling them for $10 each as a pair. For the whole story at Trail Days. And I'll keep that going. I'm going to put a page up on my website in the next couple of days to make sure that they're available for people if they want to buy 2. I'm happy to sign them if people want me to sign them. They're more valuable without me signing them, but if they want me to, that's fine. And the other one is, because you have to pay for the cost of printing. The other one is only $7.50.
Okay. Right on. Well, I'm glad we got to chat about the books. And like I said, the main reason, too, is especially for listeners that maybe haven't been listening since the very beginning or haven't binge listened to all the first couple episodes. They may not know all the details. So I'm glad.
Isn't it surprising the number of people who said they have binge listened to all episodes, though?
Yeah. There was some guy that said he has like an hour commute every day, and he just powers through them and is listening to all the episodes. So
that is so cool.
Really fun. Well, with that in mind, I guess we can talk maybe a little more about what's upcoming on the horizon. So you mentioned some of your writing plans, but I know you have some hiking plans this summer as well that you've talked about.
Yeah, I do. And this could be, well, hopefully if I do the other 2 books, this one could be my 6th book because as people probably know, I've failed miserably on the John Muir Trail twice in the past, having tried it for just 3 days the first time and just 3 days the second time. The elevation just kicked my ass. I mean, I'm still slightly nervous about it, but luckily I tried to get a permit this year and I wasn't able to get it. And then amazingly, one of our listeners wrote to me and said she and her husband were going to do the John Muir Trail, and would I like her 4 permits? Oh, yes. So, yes, please. I said I would. So I'm going to be going with Jester from one of our other podcasts, obviously, and her 2 friends. And so it's going to be a lot of fun. We're going on the 28th of July. I am nervous about it. There's no question that elevation does not like me. And I'm pretty sure not everybody knows, perhaps they do. I got a pulmonary embolism last time I tried to do this, and we weren't sure whether it was from the drive home there and back 2,500 miles each way in just 5 days each way. I got this pulmonary embolism, which is not a good thing to get. So I'm concerned about it, but I've had a chat with my doctor, and I've had a chat with some other people as well. And I'm still taking more advice. One of the things somebody said to me, and I believe it was my doctor, she said, give up all alcohol for a week before you go. I mean, that in itself is a bit of a mission, but okay, I'll give it up for a week. And she said, because it will make you able to hydrate more. So I'm going to try it, just try to stay more hydrated. I do know that I got shocking headaches when I was there, the very first day I was there before. So that may be part of it. I'm going to take some medication, which I'm told is the good stuff, and hopefully that will work as well. But if anybody has any ideas, believe me, I'm always looking for someone who's got the magic bullet when it comes to something that's going to help me do this, because this is going to be 3rd time the charm, or not at all. And that will be the title of the book, of course, 3rd time's the charm. So I better do it now.
Now, is this the first time you've attempted it in a group, or were you in a group the last?
I was in the first time I went with the 2 of the 3 people I summited Katahdin with in 2014, Lyda, Knott and T-Bird, and T-Bird's husband, Joe. And I had to back out. I was holding them up. And amazingly, within 1 mile of me backing out, the 3 of them had to stop because Joe injured himself. He fell pretty badly and smashed his face up. Yeah. So that was pretty sort of badly fated expedition anyway. And the second time I went with a previous guest on the show, the Dude. And the Dude and I tried it in 2018, I think, something like that. I'm not sure actually when. It might have been 2018, 2017. And he went on and he did it, but I just couldn't keep up. And after a couple of days, I said, this is just not working for me. And I went back down to the beginning. And I went home and I felt terrible. I mean, I know you would try to do the AT last year and you felt terrible when you had to go home as well. And it's not mortifying, but it's very upsetting when it happens because you've invested so much time and energy and planning and thought into what you're going to do. And to have it almost, it feels like it's taken away from you. Even though it's entirely you, it feels like it's taken away from you, doesn't it?
Yeah, and it's the way I kind of think about it is it's kind of this big center of gravity, right, that you're being pulled towards and planning towards, and then it's just shut off, and you're kind of unstable and trying to figure out. It's hard to make sense of it, and it's one of those things that I have tremendous respect for anyone that has not only made attempts at trails but continues to try. So I mean, I think going back for a 3rd time is, I think that's just fantastic, really.
Well, I tell you what, man. It is as I'm in October next year. I'll be 70 years of age. I think when you get to these ages, I know there's Nimblewall Nomad out there, that guy you never heard of. Nimblewall Nomads out there doing the AT, and what a man he is. There is a finite horizon for all of us at some stage, almost by definition. And while I don't think mine is in my immediate future, I know that the opportunities are going to become less and less as time goes on. I still want to do the West Highland Way, which I planned to do last year. I still want to do Hadrian's Wall Path, and I'll probably do the two of those together, one after the other. And once that's done, if I do the John Muir Trail, I'm going to be happy. Though I would quite like to do the Camino one more time and do that with my girlfriend, because I think she'd really enjoy that.
Well, right on. I'm still curious a little more about the John Muir Trail. Is there anything, thinking about your backpacking experience over 2 AT hikes is obviously pretty dialed in. When you think about your gear and what you're going to be kind of taking with you on this journey, what adjustments have you had to make? What things are going to be new, or what things are going to be the same?
Well, funny enough, at the end of the 2019 through hike, when I was at Shaw's in Monson, this may seem a minor thing to you, but it was quite surprisingly important to me. I bought 2 new pairs of Injinji socks. I already had Injinji socks, and they were fine. I just wanted something new to go into the 100-mile wilderness with, and I bought a new Sawyer Squeeze. It didn't need a new one of those either. It just felt good to be this is 100 miles now. This is something I've got to do. So I'm sure I'm going to buy a few other things that I probably don't need before I go, but I kind of want to feel like this is a different hike, Yeah. My tent I loved before. I'm going to keep that tent, which is a duplex, Z-Pex duplex. I've got my backpack, which is the Art Blast Z-Pex. And frankly, the combination of those, the weight of those, they're so light. They were just great to have. I've obviously got to have a bare canister this year. And that's going to be problematic because, there's not a lot of room, not a huge amount of room in the Art Blast. So that'll take up pretty much all the room there is. So, you're going to have to do that. But by and large, hiking's hiking, I probably won't need any cold weather gear. I might need wet weather gear. I probably will, in fact. But I don't worry too much about that because none of it ever keeps me dry. Right. So I won't worry about that. I'm going to take my umbrella. So I'll take most of the things I had actually on the AT.
Right on. That reminds me of a story. I might have shared it with you before, but one of my good friends hiked the JMT in the past, and they had in their group they had bear canisters, right? Yeah. And they were feeling good about it. You're like, we got our bear canisters. We're doing the right thing. We don't have to worry about anything. And they set them next to this tree, and a bear came by, and the round knocked it over, and it rolled into a stream. So the bear didn't get it, but they still lost their food. So it was just like, and I think they recovered one of them, but it was all soaked. So everything was just super ruined. Which I'm not hoping that to happen to you, but I think it's a good reminder of just because it's in a bear canister doesn't mean it's completely,
placement
safe.
Is really important. Let me tell you, you got to make sure it's away from where you are, but you make sure if it does get knocked over, it doesn't roll somewhere over a mountain, a mountaintop. So, you do what you have to do. You behave well. You leave no trace. All those things, they apply wherever you are. You respect your surroundings, and you do your best to just leave as little impact as possible on the environment you're in. But I'm looking forward to it. I mean, massively looking forward to it, as you can imagine. This was the opportunity I didn't think I'd get. I've been trying to apply this year, and those permits turned up just out of the blue for me. So I'm so grateful.
That's so exciting. The last question I have about it is as far as like travel logistics. Are you driving again, flying? How are you getting out there?
Well, I'm flying, and that's great because I'm going to try we're going to have to get there 2 days before we start. So I'll have a day and a half to acclimatise, which probably isn't enough. And we're following a pretty well-known plan of action. And we try to model our plan on one we found online, where we try to get a climb when we're going to climb and then go down to camp. Climb in the morning, go down to camp. And that apparently is the best way to do it. But you know what, Ryan? I don't know whether I'm going to be able to do this, but I absolutely know if I don't go and try it, I definitely won't be able to do it. So I'm going because I want to try to do it. And That's it, And if I don't do it, well, I want to try it. This is almost certainly going to be the last chance saloon for me, as far as this is concerned.
Well, I love that a ton. And the reason I asked that logistical question too is I'm always so curious about that transition into the wilderness for hikers. And some people don't really care a lot about it. Some people are interested in it. But, some people talk about driving someplace versus taking a train versus taking a plane to one of these journeys, because it can be quite jarring if you're in an office looking at a computer and then boom, you're in the woods. So
it's not the same thing at all.
Yeah. So I don't know. I love that. And I think about almost making it a bit of a ritual in these transitions to these journeys. So I don't know. I am always curious about that. And I think it sounds like y'all have a good plan. And then going with a group would be a lot of fun as well.
Well, I've done it both ways. I've flown there and I've driven there, and neither of those worked. So this time I'm hoping the flying there bit will work, and I'll make it. That's what I'm trying to do. And as I say to you, if I don't try, I'm definitely not going to be able to do it.
Yeah. Well, I don't think anyone can knock that at all. And I think in the attempt, right, is what it's all about. So right on.
Yeah.
All right. Well, great to catch up with you, Steve. Great to see you this past weekend, and looking forward to what's to come with books and hiking and the show.
And the show is definitely one of the things that's it's going to change as time goes on. And while we're on at the moment still, how are you enjoying it?
It's been good. It's been good. It definitely is. It's more logistically challenging than I would have thought. So it's given me a whole new respect.
Welcome to my world, mate.
Yeah. Well, the timelines just get really tight, because you're planning and then you schedule something and then it's, Thursday comes really quick. So sometimes the folks you're reaching out to may not quite realize that. So it's definitely a lot more work than I had anticipated. That would be my biggest advice to anyone that is curious about podcasting, is it is a lot more on the back end that people may not think about. But it's really nice. And you said this towards the beginning, is when you put a microphone in front of someone, whether it be virtually or in person, they tend to open up. And
yes,
it is really special that guests or whoever is willing to share, a part about themselves and a part about their journeys and a part of just to open up to really a stranger sometimes, I think is really special. So I'm very grateful for that opportunity.
Well, I'm glad you do it. And I've already said to you, I think you do an amazing job, far better than you thought you were doing, by the way. And I think hearing people say that to you this weekend, hopefully that did make you feel good, because it should do, because you did a great job. And I've sent you a couple of new reviews we've got, which people say what a great job you're doing. And just to let listeners know that the first month Ryan was doing the show, the least popular show in April was the one I did, which I thought was terrific.
Well, I thought what I told you this weekend, I thought was pretty funny, of that people are, it's like, seeing a car accident or something, everyone's staring just to see what's going on, right? Just to see what's going down. So there may be more numbers, but that doesn't mean it's always good. But you did say too that, with a niche podcast like this, you don't just get random people kind of stumbling in. Usually most people are coming in with some interest in hiking or backpacking or the AT. So
that's right. Yeah.
People are already, they kind of know what they're getting into and are very reasonable. So that, it's so great how kind everyone's been. It's really appreciated. Yeah.
And you've really helped by getting the stuff to me when you needed to get to me, because as you know, I'm very proud of the fact we never missed a deadline.
It's hard to do.
I don't think I've ever told this in the show, actually, that some years ago, when I was in the UK, so it must have been about 2-3 years ago, I'm not sure now. A couple of years ago, I was in the UK, and this show comes out at 3 a.m. on a Thursday morning Eastern time every week. But one week I missed. I was in the UK, and so that would have been 8 a.m. on a Thursday morning in the UK. I went out the night before with my friends I was staying with in the UK, and I said to him, I want to get up early in the morning just to finish the show off. It only takes 2 or 3 hours to finish off, and I should get up in time for 8 o'clock. Well, I ran into a few hurdles, and I eventually got it up 10 o'clock, which would have been 5 o'clock Eastern. I got an email at 4 o'clock Eastern asking where the show was.
Really?
Yes.
Wow.
So people have an expectation. That's why not missing a deadline is incredibly important to me.
Well, if you remember on your 2019 hike, when you were sending me the files,
Yes,
it was very close sometimes. Like it was very, very close. And that was both of our, it wasn't anyone's fault. It was just the struggles of trying to upload a show while someone is on the trail, because you could only get service at certain times. And
that's right.
There was one of them I very clearly remember. I was at an airport and my flight was boarding. And you had just sent it to me. So I was furiously trying to download it through the airport Wi-Fi and get it uploaded, because I was going to be on it was a pretty long flight, so I wasn't going to be able to get it up before the deadline. But we made it. And so I'm always proud that for that entire hike, neither of us missed a deadline.
That's right. Oh, yeah. It's important stuff. It really is.
Right on. All right. Well, thanks again, Steve. It's great to catch up, and we'll talk soon.
Thank you, buddy. Take it easy, okay? Cheers.
Thanks. Bye. All right. Well, great time chatting with Steve earlier, and would highly recommend folks to check out his different books, whether for yourself or for someone you know as a gift. Always great reading, AT memoirs. It's so fascinating. It's the same strip of dirt through the woods, but everyone's journey on it really is so different. And it's always great to read those stories. So check those out. I'm sure we'll put the links to where you can find all that in the show notes. And definitely consider them, and at least check out the free ebook that you're able to get from his author website. Okay, so I'm going to turn it back over to Steve, who's going to close out the show. So over to Steve.
Thanks, Ryan. What a great guest you had today. When Ryan first suggested me as a guest, I was a little reluctant, having been a guest on my own show twice before, but given that I'd been to Trail Days and I don't overly push my books on the show, it didn't seem too unreasonable, so I hope you don't mind. As you heard, I'm going to be putting my novel on hold and trying to get the other two books written over the coming year, and when I complete the JMT, I'll get that one done as well. Maybe the novel will come out after that. If you want to check out any of my books, just go to steveadamsauthor.com and you'll see everything there. Before we speak to Katie this week, and yes, she's back on the trail, I need to thank all of you who have continued to support the show in my kind of absence. This week, we had more monthly donations from Suzanne Johnson and Todd Withrow, while Betty McEnany set up a new monthly donation. Also, do you remember Dr. Lynn? Well, she hiked quite a few miles on the AT recently and decided to send me a very generous donation to support the shows. Thanks to you, Lynn, and all of those of you who regularly support me in what I'm doing here with the network. So let's hear from Katie now. Here she is. So, after quite a bit of a rest, we've got Katie in the woods again. How are you, Katie?
Hey, Steve. I'm doing great.
I'm
really
sure you are.
happy to be here.
I'm sure. Now, I know you changed your plans, and the original idea was to go back to, was it Rock Gap where you were going to go back to? So what did you decide to do?
Allen Gap.
Allen Gap, that's right. So what did you decide to do?
So I decided to get back on and start at Rock Gap. So I'd gotten off at Allen Gap down in North Carolina.
Yeah.
Rock Gap is the very southern part of the Shenandoahs. So I'm taking it slow, doing slack packing, just trying to take it slow and let my body to continue to heal.
And I think that was a good plan. When I saw you, in fact, you got back to me, you texted me and told me what you were planning to do. So the rationale was that Shenandoah is generally regarded as one of the easier parts of the trail. Are you finding that to be the case?
Absolutely. It's very doable, and with the lighter weight, and I am just my goal, I kind of had to change my way of thinking about how to do this next several weeks, and so it's not really even about miles. It's about walking without increasing pain. And so when I got off, I was at, for me, a level 9 pain, and now it's a level 1, and I've been able to maintain that for the last week or so. And so that's why I'm back in the mountains, and I am making some miles, but they're baby miles.
That's okay. It's to be honest with you, you were home for a couple of weeks, so you're starting all over again. Actually, how long were you at home?
4 weeks.
4 weeks.
I had been off trail 4 weeks, and so ready to get back on. And this is a way I can do it. Shenandoahs are very accommodating for anyone trying to recover. And it's beautiful. I was worried I would miss the wildflowers, but nope, they're still out here.
Nice.
Just lovely.
And have you seen any bears yet? Because that's the only place I saw bears last time.
I know. I thought I came out a little bit early this morning, not, I guess about 8:30 or so, but maybe still not early enough to catch a bear. But, it's quiet out here today. So I may, when I get to some of these meadows, if I can overlook a meadow, I might be able to see one.
That'd be cool. Yeah.
I have seen them here before. So,
right. So,
I'm hoping I will.
So how much of a gap is it between where you got off and where you restarted?
Yeah, I've already forgotten, but I think it was 170 miles left to go in North Carolina, Tennessee.
All right.
And then I would need to come back and finish that part and come back and finish the southern half of Virginia.
Yeah.
So, and I'm happy with that. The thing I don't want to do is to get shut out of the season in Maine.
Yeah. So your plan is to carry on going north all the time now?
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Good for you. Good for you.
I feel like it's just too chopped up if I try to go back now.
Yes.
And that because I know I'll end up having to jump up, even if I went back to North Carolina.
So let's talk about the pain bit, because you said you're at level 1 pain, which is pretty good. So what does that mean to you? Are you still in some sort of pain?
So I am in a little bit of, I can feel it. I'm taped up and I have a brace on. And I think, the conversation I had with my doctor is that my body is going to tell me what it can handle.
Sure.
And that if I don't let the fracture heal, then it's going to come back.
Sure.
And for me, the goal is to complete my hike. So, I'm just like today, I'm doing 5 miles. Yesterday, I did close to, I think it was right around 4.
Uh-huh.
And if I can go a week, slack packing, then I'll pick up some, try to increase my miles before I add weight, and then I'll drop back a little bit.
And what's it feeling like at the end of the last couple of days? Because you've been back on 2 days, haven't you?
I feel good. I'm because I'm slack packing, I can get to where I need to be and ice it.
Sure.
So woke up this morning feeling great. And, I do have a bit of a downhill today at the end. You're going
to find there a few more of those, by the way.
Yeah, right.
That's funny.
But I do know that activity is important, and this is what I want to be doing. And so I feel like every day that I'm out here is a good day.
And so how on board was the doctor with your plan?
Well, basically what she said was start with no more than 5 miles, see how you're feeling. And then she said, your body's going to dictate, if you're feeling pain, that's what you need to, like, not just, I don't mean just aching and,
sure.
My body's tired from hiking. It's the localized pain. If you're feeling pain at the fracture site, then you need to be paying attention. So,
you know what, I'd feel terrible about that personally because I'd be waiting for it, if you know what I mean. Are you kind of waiting for the pain to come back, or you just say, this is where I am right now, I'm iced up and I'm doing what I've been told to do? Or are you living now in a constant concern about, you because 1 or 2 twinges, you do walk off, don't you?
Right. So I guess, I mentioned to you that I had before that I had a paradigm shift.
Uh-huh.
And that shift is not right now about accruing miles. Right now it is about pushing back the threshold, that pain, like so each day that I can do a little more without that significant pain. So that's, and then that way, along with the stretches and the exercises, letting the knee heal and do what it needs to do.
Yeah. And I know one of the things I don't think you were concerned about it particularly, but you were, maybe you were a little concerned about missing people and people going on and not being around. But you've already bumped into people. I've already seen your Facebook page. Bumped into a bunch of people. Yeah.
Yes. There was the family that I was, my tramley that I was around,
sure.
Of course they're going on and they're hiking faster than, there's no way that I would even consider that I could, keep that pace now, in these first weeks back. So, but to me, it's a joy to meet up with anyone who's hiking the trail. And so, I was so thrilled for that.
So what mile are you at now then? I can't remember. Shenandoah is in the 800s or something, isn't it?
It is, yes. I tell you, Steve, I can't, because I'm trying to not think about the miles so much right now.
Sure.
I think it's in the 800s.
Yeah.
So
and it's nice.
I'm documenting it, but I'm not holding it in my head.
It's very nice though. I think I enjoy Shenandoah. A lot of people didn't seem to think it was nice, but I actually enjoyed it more the second time than I did the first time.
Right.
We used to play, the reason we probably didn't see many bears, we were playing trail karaoke where a bunch, about 5 or 6 of us singing out loud, which probably didn't help.
Yeah, well, you're not going to see any bears if you do that.
That's very true. Yeah. So, are you staying in shelters or in your tent? What are you doing?
Well, when I get up to a camp area, I'll stay in my tent. Otherwise, I'm staying with family,
right?
Who live near the trail. So,
right.
That's kind of where I am right now.
Yeah, I mean, really, we've discussed it before. You never had the opportunity to really get into that rhythm, and until you feel more comfortable with your leg, then you're not going to have that chance to do that. But once you start feeling the comfort with your leg and you get some couple of weeks under your belt, that itself is really going to be you're going to know in a couple of weeks' time whether you can carry on, aren't you?
Exactly. Yes, I will.
Yeah, most
certainly. And, I was thinking about this, I find, when I first started this hike, that I didn't give a lot of thought to what the AT had to teach me.
Right.
and I know that I've lived my life often just by sheer force of will. And that is something she has taught me, is that you just can't do that. Of course, you have to have determination, but, it also has to be on her terms.
Oh, yeah, she's got to let you do it.
That's right.
And it's all the better for it, when that happens. So, and I'm glad you're going to listen to your body, and you just do the sensible thing for you. And it may be
exactly.
that this is the approach, and you do 4 or 5 miles, and then you do 7 or 8 miles, and then you do 9 or 10 miles. And once you know where you are, then you'll know. There'll be no disguising it in a couple of weeks' time. You'll know whether you'll be able to do it or not.
Sure.
So
exactly.
I'm glad that you're so positive as always. I guess you are glad to be back on the trail, and that's pretty clear that you are. What do you think
yes.
What have you noticed anything different? I know it's only a few days since you've been back on. Any differences between when you were last here?
Oh, definitely. When I got off, there were barely any leaves on the trees. And now they're everywhere.
So you got the green tunnel.
Oh, yes. Everything has leafed out. Still wildflowers, still the spring wildflowers out here. But everything has leafed out. So a lot more shade. I'm not looking through the crown of the trees at ridges in the distance. I'm in a thick forest. so which is lovely. It's different but lovely.
Yeah, it really is. All times of the year that 'cause I went a month earlier last time than I did the time before, and So I saw the trail at different times as well. And it's just beautiful all the time. And I've got to tell you, by the way, I was at Trail Days this last weekend, and a number of people who listen to the show came up to me and said, we wish Phoenix well and hope she's going to be okay and to get back onto it. So, you've got people encouraging you and hopefully,
Yay.
hopefully your legs are going to stand up to it. And we're going to hear from you again next week. Okay.
Absolutely. I'm looking forward to it, Steve.
You take it easy, okay? But you obviously are, so keep taking it easy. All right?
Okay.
Cheers,
then.
Then.
Steve. Thanks a bunch.
Bye.
Okay. Bye-bye.
You've got to hand it to her. She's not letting this go lightly, is she? I know how she feels. Once you get a taste of the trail, it really takes hold of your heart, and the thought of being forced out of it is truly heartbreaking. Let's hope that the Shennies give her the chance to fully heal and let her see her first bear, and then allow her the opportunity to add to those 4 or 5 and 6 mile days as she builds up. As you can tell, she's learning a lot about the trail and herself. Next week, Ryan's got a week off, so I'm back with a full show. I look forward to talking with you all then. I'll see you next week.